The following podcast is part of the MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Break through the busiest time of year with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus. Powered by Peloton IQ. With real-time guidance and endless ways to move, you can personalize your workouts and train with confidence, helping you reach your goals in less time. Let yourself run, lift, sculpt, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Spring is here, and the shopping list is long. Time to make a Lowe's run. Buy 3 bags, get 3 free of Stay Green 1 cubic foot garden soil. Plus, right now, members can earn 4 times the points on an eligible purchase. Start spring off strong with these deals and more. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Valid through 3/25 while supplies last. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change. Point boosters subject to exclusions and more terms apply. One-time only offer.
Hi, I'm Lindsay, host of the Live Like Eden podcast. What do you do when your whole life flips upside down? Are you questioning everything, lost in chaos, or yearning for life's deeper meaning? I've been there, deep in the thick of it, unraveling my own awakening mess for over 20 years. Now I'm here to help you through yours. I share no-nonsense weekly wake-ups, cutting through the ego's illusions to wake you up to your own spiritual wisdom. No mountaintop bliss needed here. Just practical tools, insights, and real-life experience to save you time. Plus, a much-needed laugh when we're all losing it. Let's dive into this fresh new episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. I hope you're doing well this week. Today, I want to get into something that I think is dominating the airwaves. With so much noise out there today in the world through social media, the news, all the different subjects of the world, whether we're talking about education, science, spirituality, religion, politics, whatever the topic is, there's something that sneaks in and starts to control with its tentacles everywhere. Groupthink, right? It's so easy to start hearing what someone else is saying and just start repeating it like a parrot. And this is very, very contagious. And groups do this all the time. They bond together over maybe similar beliefs, similar ideas, whatever it is. But you start talking like each other. You say the same words. You say the same phrases. And if you just turn on the media or turn on the news, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. The talking points are all very similar. It's like everyone says the same thing over and over and over again, the same phrasing. And I've always been somebody that has questioned this because I think it sounds weird. It's like, what are we talking about? Everyone's saying the same thing. Does anybody have an independent thought about this topic? And it's almost as if independent free thinking or liberal free thought is not even here anymore, even though people use the word they're liberal, but they're not very tolerant of other people's views, which is interesting to me. It's almost like we've morphed what that word even means anymore. Many of you listening maybe grew up religious, you were in religion for a while and it didn't work for you, so you stepped out of that. And then maybe you entered into a new age community or spirituality and started reading and listening to all kinds of other people. If you're not careful, it seems like we trade one dogma for a new dogma, and we don't even know that it's happening. It's almost like the group thinking narratives are in every little pocket of the world, aren't they? And it's really difficult to be a real independent person today and think about what you're hearing. We are flooded with information everywhere. We have no idea who to trust, who's paid, right? Who are the paid influencing voices trying to push a narrative, make you believe something, pushing an agenda. This is happening in all areas of the world, and we have no idea. So using discernment to question narratives is going to be the focus of today's show, but specifically in spirituality. And then what you hear today, you can just apply to everything in the world. It doesn't just stop here. But the reason I'm bringing this up in the first place, spiritual groupthink, is a friend of mine sent me a podcast recently, and I listened to it, and it was interesting, right? It has lots of different topics. They're talking about all the possibilities, right, that exist in the universe and looking at it from all angles and trying on different ideas. And some claims are made, which happens a lot. A lot of people make absolutist claims. And as I'm saying this, I want you to think about this. If we all knew the absolute truth, the truth of God, the truth of what is, there would be no discussion over it because we would know it. We're all playing around in the dream world, right? This world, the playground. Some people call it Earth School. You call it whatever you want. But it seems like it's a learning or an unlearning ground for us to figure out who we truly are, what we truly are, and how to return to that. At least that's how it feels to me. You know, especially as you get a certain age, you're going, what is going on here? What are we doing here? There's got to be something I'm missing. So during this podcast, I'm listening to it and I start to hear a lot of similar phrases, similar things I hear in the spiritual communities or the New Age world. I've heard it a lot over the years. And these are things that I just go, I don't know. Is that true? Like, how do we know that? And I made a list and I want to go over it today. And the topics I'm going to cover, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly just so you have a quick overview and you can think about it for yourself, apply it in your own life, apply it to your own belief system and see what you think. We're going to talk about predetermination versus free will, something I've thought about a lot since I've been very young. Dimensions, what dimensional reality are we living in? How do we know? Where's the proof, right? Then we'll talk about dark entities or dark energy, feeling like maybe you're under psychic attack, that kind of thing. Another concept, nothing is everything. Let's talk about that. And then God is boring, therefore we keep co-creating in a universe to have some fun. So this concept of being bored, that we might get bored and that's why we keep creating over and over again. Or you might have heard the words consciousness or God is just expressing itself over and over all the time. And then lastly, I've talked about this before, but we'll look at, is soul growth an illusion? Is the soul growing or is something else happening? So let's start with predetermination versus free will. What do you think? Do you think you have free will? It seems like we make choices, right? Every day you get up, you make a decision about what you're going to do, how you're going to go about your day. You make a plan, you set appointments. You're always making decisions. Each one of us is doing it. It certainly seems this way. It seems as if we have free will. Religion talks about this a lot. Well, God created you in his likeness. When you ask the question, well, why would God create such a crazy world? Right? The answer is usually along the lines of, well, he gave you free will. He gave us all free will to make decisions. And now we're all running around killing each other. Literally, like right now, what are we dropping bombs? This just happens all the time, happens throughout history. We are making decisions that oftentimes seem like poor ones, right? Why would God create all this? So then there's the concept, well, maybe it's all predetermined, that maybe all of this has already happened, right? This is a very metaphysical principle, but if everything's already occurred at once, you hear people say this, right? Or metaphysicians that say, well, everything's happening right now. So each timeline is already occurring and it's occurring all at once. We somehow only remember this timeline. Who knows, right? I don't know. This is the linear timeline that we think we're on. But if it's already happened, if everything's already occurred, is it predetermined? Meaning, is everything unfolding as it already did, and we are simply remembering it or making decisions in the moment or thinking we're making a decision that's already been made? It's kind of an interesting thing to think about, right? It doesn't mean you stop making decisions in your life because that's how we get through the day, right? But then taking it a little deeper, it's like, well, if everything's already been done, there's really not much I can do to change the outcome of anything that already happens. Even though I think I'm doing that, and you could say this too with like, I'm manifesting my life. I want to create this. Well, you believe in the moment that that's what you're doing. We all believe, well, yes, I did this. I made a big change in my life and I created this. But am I just being guided to what already happened? It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. And if you shift out of thinking you're in control of your own life and you're making all the decisions, and then what happens there is you blame yourself, right? When something doesn't go the way that you want it to, or you feel ashamed of it. If you shift into, well, I'm just being guided, even though I'm making decisions, I'm being guided and shown something that has already unfolded. And I think that's where like deeper realms of manifestation are headed, is that something has already occurred. So you're almost remembering or envisioning something that already happened. If you ever get visions in your life, have you ever had, I have a vision of a home that I want to build one day, or I have a vision of a place I'd like to see in my life, or, whatever it is for you. Maybe you want to create a business, or, whatever it is, you think in your mind that you're creating it and you see all these visions, like you really get insight onto what this looks like, right? You can feel it, you see it, it's got texture, all the senses come in and you formed it in your mind, or at least you think you did. Is it possible it's a memory because it's already happened all at once? I don't know, food for thought, something to think about. I kind of find that interesting because if that's the case, then you kind of relax your life a little bit. It doesn't have to be so, well, what if this doesn't happen? If I don't get my way, and I'm worried and constantly in my head with my ego going crazy, And you just flip it and go, okay, everything has happened. I'm remembering. And then therefore you become a receiver of information that's already there, as opposed to trying to carve your way and make it complicated and difficult. The next thing I want to talk about that was on this show is dimensions. 3D, 5D, 12D, all these dimensions, the ascension crowd, we're ascending as if we're going somewhere. It always makes it sound like we're leaving somewhere and going to another location physically. At least that's how it sounds. What do you think about that? There's a lot of discussion on all these things, yet nobody has any evidence, tangible evidence to show you what those look like. It's all theory. It's all people's experiences, right? Shared experience, maybe what somebody visualizes or feels in their own life. But beyond that, how do you have any evidence for what that even means? And you can get really wrapped up in that community for as long as you want. And there's a big movement today that as a group, we're all going to ascend into this other realm, whatever that means. If you look back at history, the world is always changing, right? I mean, this world, whatever history they tell us too, that's another thing. So whatever's been recorded, and how do we know that's even accurate? you know? Because the people in control, the people who have power, they want you to know certain things. So anything you're reading, anything about history, is only written by the victor, usually, right? We don't know. I don't know. I question all kinds of things because it's like, I have no idea. We weren't there. If we were there, we would have a little bit more understanding, but we weren't. So I don't know. Yeah, you read the book, you learn it in class. You're like, great, take the test, pass the test. But do I really know if any of that information is accurate? But what we do know is everything is constantly changing here. It's always changing. I've said this a lot before, but this is not a stable world. It's the world of duality. It's the world of polarity. It's the world of this and that and opposites. It's constantly moving and flowing in new directions. Therefore, it's not trustworthy, is it? It's hard to trust this world because it's always moving and changing, and there's moving parts all the time. So when people are talking about the ascension, that we're all going to ascend into a new dimension, could you break that down and say, well, the world's always changing and we always are evolving and doing things differently here, that's possible? Like when you have big movements, when we went into the Industrial Revolution, right? That was a major shift in the world. We went into machinery. It was a huge change. We're doing that right now with technology. Major shifts. This happens all the time. Does that mean we're on some new evolutionary understanding? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we're just still playing in the playground, still not getting it. I mean, these are just things to think about. But in the multidimensional chatter, it can get kind of complicated. It seems that, if we are going to evolve and we need to grow as a soul, and I'll get into this later, the soul growth topic, that we are climbing a ladder of dimensions to go home. I mean, that's the illusion of it, right? That there's a hierarchy. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. What aspect of our mind likes hierarchies? The ego, right? The ego is the master of the kingdom, right? It is all about hierarchies and bettering oneself. And I'm above the other person. I'm separating from someone else because I'm in another dimension. I'm in a better dimension than those people down there in the 3D. So you can see how easy the ego can slip into everything we do, but also slips in to spirituality and spiritual groupthink. Now, it may appear that you're on a higher frequency. It may appear that you're in touch with a higher realm. That's how our minds interpret information here. But if you take that out for a minute, I want you to think about this. Is it possible that as you truly wake up from this reality, as you start heading home, as you make that U-turn, right? Instead of continuing out into the world, you're now circling back. That's another term I think is funny. Let's just circle back. We'll circle back. But it has a deeper meaning. Let's circle back home. Let's round them up and go. But is it possible that all those so-called dimensions collapse into one vast field of awareness? I want to share an experience with you that I had many years ago. It was when I had a really big shift in my head. I had this huge balloon burst go through my head, literally, physically felt this blowing up of energy inside the center of my head and pushing, and eventually it just burst. And in that moment, everything in my perception shifted permanently, and it's shifted for years and years now. This happened back in 2011. And what happened was so surreal, I couldn't put my finger on it for years. This is how long it took. But something was so different. Everything that I felt and saw in my eyesight, it's like it was in a vast sea or an ocean, all flowing together in one moving part, not in different dimensions. It's almost as if the three-dimensional realm that we're living in collapsed on itself. And I was seeing that everything really was one interconnected, fluid essence. And I wouldn't even say it's physical. It was just like I was looking at everything around me and it would just merge into one field. So is it possible that all those dimensional realms are just distractions that the ego creates? This is really something to think about because I don't hear this out there. I don't hear anybody talking like this. And maybe there are pockets, I just haven't heard them. But everything just collapsing into one. If that's what God truly is, just one essence, one reality, the purity that we are seeking, wouldn't it make sense that everything would sort of dissolve into that, or at least into the symbol of that until we're actually home? So try that on. Think about it for yourself. Think about if you're traversing what you feel like is different dimensions or different frequencies and vibration. And think about, wow, is there a place that's possible where it all just melts into one, melts into this unwavering sea, which feels like energy or vibrance. It feels like it's alive. I don't even know the right words for it, but it's so there. It's so in your face. You cannot deny it. It's right there. And one other thing to think about with that concept of ascension and we're going somewhere, it's like, where are we going? Maybe we're already there. Maybe we're already home. We're just trying to remember that. And maybe this reality is something that we plunged into and headed into. And now we're just trying to figure out how to remember to stay put, to stay in one place, to be home in what we truly are. So something to think about there. I thought it was interesting. They were implying that dimensions, have all these different symbols, and maybe it's possible that they do. I'm simply adding to that and saying, yeah, but is it possible that all of those supposed or so-called dimensions, which nobody can prove or locate because it seems to be an inner experience, right? It seems like something that we have an inner universe within ourselves. We're the dreamer of the dream, or we're projecting this out, then everything is within us. Those realms are within us. Or do they eventually dissolve into one awareness?
Introducing Shark Facial Pro Glow, a first-of-its-kind at-home facial. Pro-level extraction removes impurities, and dual-temperature technology boosts radiance and deep puffs with both Insta-Heat and Insta-Chill technology. Treat yourself to a hydro-fueled glow in minutes. And because Shark Facial Pro Glow fits in the palm of your hand, you can get that luminous post-spa glow anywhere. Visit sharkbeauty.com to learn more.
As a contractor, I don't pay for materials I don't use. So why would I pay for stuff I don't need in my mobile plan? That's why my Biz plan from Verizon Business is so perfect. Now I can choose exactly what I want, and I only pay for what I need.
Right now, with my Biz plan, get our best price, as low as $25 a line. Visit Verizon.com/business to get started today. New lines only. Price per month with 5+ lines. Includes auto pay and paper-free billing and promotional discounts. Taxes, fees, economic adjustment charge. Applicable add-ons, prices, and terms apply. Guarantee applies to base monthly rate and stated discounts only. Add-on prices additional. Offers in March 31st, 2026.
Another thing that was brought up in the show was dark energies, dark entities, feeling like you're being attacked by darkness. I can speak to this personally. I had a period of many years when I was going through a really rough time where I felt like something was attacking me. It really felt like the energy was just attacking me and I had no say in it. I will say this, it never felt evil to me. I never felt like I was being attacked by dark entities or beings or demonic forces or anything like that. It just felt like a lot of energy and it was attacking me and I didn't know how to traverse through it. But there's a lot of people who talk about all these different beings, evil energies, you name it, it's out there, right? You could get on and listen to all kinds of conversations like this. And maybe there's people who have passed on, who died in a horrific way, and now their ghost or spirit, whatever you want to call it, is in an evil state of mind, right? And so it's just haunting. You know, you see all these strange places around the world where people feel like they're haunted, right? Have you ever been into a building where you're like, whoa, this feels haunted? Yeah, I mean, we've all had that feeling where it's like, ooh, this doesn't feel right. And there's people who say, you know, they're traveling and traversing the astral plane and it's like they're fighting demons and dragons, kind of like if you've ever read Joseph Campbell's work and the hero's journey, right? You're going out on this epic journey and you're fighting the dragons. You're literally fighting off evil to become the hero of your own story. It certainly seems that way in the world. This whole world, as I mentioned, duality, it has what appears to be good and evil. It appears this way. That's the way that the world is set up. Is it possible that that is a trick? And this is where my mind goes. Is it possible that those are just distractions? Not saying you couldn't have the experience, not saying there's not evil in the world, certainly appears to be. But on a deeper metaphysical level, if we are saying that this world is a projection of mind, each one of us is the dreamer of the dream. We're all perceiving our own reality, and we're making up a story about our life, and we're making up all the characters involved who were around, the family members, the people we interact with, the people that cause us harm. You know, all this is coming from our own projection. And then on top of our own projection, we have the collective projection, right? Which is even larger in its energy, the collective perception. And as a collective, we all believe that this world is real. We believe that this is all happening, and it certainly feels that way. So in our reality, it appears this way. Everything we do, we feel it's so real. It's strong in our minds, right? It appears that everything has such meaning and purpose. But what if these dark energies, what if this evil that we see out in the world and people commit evil acts is really the ego from a subconscious level, okay? I'm talking unbeknownst to our conscious mind. This is not something we think about logically, but it's hidden in the underworld where the ego has a little treasure box, a treasure trove of unconscious or subconscious information, let's say, that it doesn't want any of us to know. And so therefore, because it's playing in a world separate from God, it's projecting out that there is harm, that something could harm us. Something's attacking me. Dark energies are taking over. They can harm me. But in the world and as a body, it certainly seems that way. And it's true, right? Our physical bodies can be harmed. Somebody could harm me. Somebody could harm my whole world. Somebody could sabotage my whole life. This happens to people all the time. And you could say, well, that person is infected with a dark entity. And you'll get some psychic worker in there, energy worker, that'll say, oh, you've got all these dark energies attached to your auric field, right? I've known people that work like that and talk like that, and that's all fine. I'm not knocking any of that. What I'm suggesting on a deeper level to understand something even more is to say, is the ego projecting this evil out into the world and making it look physical and real so that I don't have to take responsibility that I'm the one seeing it this way? I'm the one believing I'm here. I'm the one creating in this playground of a world. I'm the one holding the gun to my head when I believe in all of this. So is it possible that dark entities or evil energy is really nothing more than the ego's projection? And the other thing to recognize is when you realize that you are responsible for your own projection of what you see in the world and how you interpret it anyway. You may not be responsible for what somebody's doing to you or how somebody's treating you, but you are responsible for your interpretation of it. And when you realize that, when we all realize that we have responsibility in the matter, and that really, oh, I'm just doing this whole thing. I'm making this up. I'm creating everything I see in front of me, and I'm creating a feeling of darkness. I'm allowing that darkness that somebody else may have to affect my mind. They may be able to affect your body. They may be able to harm you. But can they really affect your mind? If your mind is in the place of staying connected to truth, to purity, to love, wouldn't it be possible that whatever happens to you physically, that you know deep down underneath it, that this person that's doing this to you or the world that's attacking you or whatever is just simply somebody who's confused. It's somebody who's disconnected from the whole. It's somebody who's still believing in all of this. And when you realize you're the one responsible for your belief system, for how you see and perceive the world, or what is or isn't real or true, then the fear that all of us carry begins to fall away slowly. It slowly starts to leave. And even the feeling of being attacked energetically can shift and change. For many years, when I felt like I was being sabotaged by so much energy, it's like I bottled up and put up a wall and didn't want anything to do with it. And then therefore, I also felt powerless. I felt like I couldn't traverse the world in that way. And I buried myself at home for years because I didn't think I had the tools to navigate such heaviness, because it really felt like it was an onslaught, like it was just flooding me and I didn't know what to do. One thing I want to bring up is it possible to traverse through the world, which is full of dark energy and all this stuff, and you could figure out where it's coming from and do all the things, right? You could do it all. But underneath it, is there a way to allow everything, good or bad, to just simply move and pass through you, like you're a translucent channel? Instead of feeling like you have to have walls and barriers of protection, realizing that underneath it, none of this has any value. And if it just moves through me and I breathe in and I breathe out, I'm in that one-dimensional flow of awareness that I just talked about. Think about that for yourself. See what you think about that. If you're somebody who's dealing with darkness or heaviness around you, obviously, if somebody's harming you, like get away from the person, do whatever you can to not be around it physically. But then think about it in a different way. Flip it upside down and say, how am I responsible for taking it on and keeping it when I don't have to? I can simply let it move through me and pass by. The next thing that I want to talk about is something I hear over and over again in circles of spirituality, consciousness, human potential, all of those terms. And the phrase is, nothing is really everything, that they're one and the same thing. I've never understood this, and maybe I'm just not getting it. But when I think of nothing, I think of the words no thing. There's no form, nothing at all. There's nothing, nothing exists. That's what I think of when I hear the word nothing. And if that's true, if there's no thing, then how can that include everything? It seems to me like these are two different things. I'll hear people say it like nothing, and then it's everything, and it's all just one thing, and it's wild. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that doesn't make any sense, really. And if you break it down like this, if this is the ego's playground we're living in, the ego creates a world, as A Course in Miracles talks about, and the ego made up a world that is nothing, literally. The Course interprets it this way. The ego's creation is really nothing. It never was. It doesn't mean anything. It's nothing. But the only real thing or the only truth is God. God would represent everything, all that is. And those two things are not one and the same because the ego never existed. The ego was never anything. So they're not the same, at least in that interpretation. If you're looking at it from Course's perspective, those two don't even mingle. They're like on completely different sides of the aisle, you know? So something to think about when you hear over and over, I felt like I was nothing, but then I was everything, and now we're both things. It seems like the identity or the ego identity drops off. It's nothing, never was anything, and eventually we return home into the all or the everything, which has nothing to do with nothing. But it's kind of a scary thought, you know, when people break it down, it's like, wow, I'm nothing. That sends the ego into panic mode, which is what happens during awakening. That's what happens. The ego goes and gets crazy and panicked. But what the ego will try to do is slip in there and say, well, I'm nothing, but I'm also everything. The ego is part of it all. Well, I don't know. Is it? What do you think? Maybe not. Maybe it isn't. And therefore, these two concepts, nothing versus everything, are different. What about this next topic? Consciousness is always expressing itself. That's something that I hear over and over. And it's like, expressing itself. Yeah, it seems to be something is expressing itself. Does that have anything to do with God? That's always my first question. Is that God, or is that just energy in the world? You know, are they different? And then there's a lot of claims or theories that God is really just energy. I'm like, I don't know. Is energy energy and God is God? But the other thing that slips in is that we keep coming back, we keep creating, or the big term now is co-creating. Now we're co-creating with God because we are apparently God in the world and we're all powerful. And therefore we co-create and experience ourselves over and over and create new things in different dimensions, right? You see it going in all these different avenues. And the claim is that because we get bored in God, we get bored in resting in eternal peace, or the larger awareness is just boring. So therefore we get bored and we have to take a little magic carpet ride into this world and what? Try to survive, figure out how much money we got to make today. What am I going to feed everybody? You know? My mind always goes, what? I don't know. Like, have you looked at the world recently? It's strange, right? It's always crazy here. So God is boring. Now, I certainly couldn't make that statement because I don't know. It seems to me if God is this perfect whole purity that's beyond language and is this loving essence, these are things that I don't think any of us comprehend what God really is because we're here. So I don't know how we would know that. How do we know we'd be bored? Well, our ego mind certainly gets bored, right? We need a constant distraction here because if we're sitting in silence for too long, we're bored, right? We want to do something, create something. You could say that this is simply the ego and the way that it distracts us to co-create, keep creating so we don't actually return to home. So you could look at it that way too. And then you could look at it as, yeah, this is God. God is energy. God likes to create and lets you create with him. And you're just constantly doing it over and over for eternity. There's lots of schools of thought on that. And in that theory, there's no end game. There's no ending to the creating. It's just a constant sea of creating. The concept of God being boring always kind of makes my eyebrows lift like, I don't know. How could something all powerful be boring? I don't know. What do you think? Send me a note on that one. I'd love to know your thoughts. And I sometimes hear like this game where, you know, we reincarnate as a soul and we keep coming back, learning the lessons, right? I'm going to get into that in a minute here with the soul growth, but we keep coming back. So we learn our lessons and then we can return home to God. And then if we get bored there, then we just come back and it's like we repeat the cycle over and over and over. And it's just one big cycle. And again, what is the point? Like I keep saying, like, what is that? You know? Maybe I should just stop questioning it and just remember everything that's already happened, right? So finally, I want to get to the last topic that came to mind when I was listening to this show is the concept of soul growth. This is a big one. Lots of people talk about our soul needing to grow. We're constantly evolving and learning. It's part of our soul's trajectory. I could see that, right? I can see why people talk like that. I can see why we think like that. I can see that because when we're in it, we think we're getting better at something or we're getting wiser or learning something. And we associate that with growing, like we just grew into a better state of being. I can't help but equate the word better in there, like we're somehow bettering ourselves in the process. There's the whole personal growth movements and the human potential that we could just be these all-powerful beings doing whatever we want when we want it, get what we want when we want it. And I can't help but think, isn't that the ego? Isn't it the ego that wants to snap its fingers and get what it wants when it wants it? So I think about this a little bit differently. And I look at it as this: if the soul is a replica of perfection, of God, an imprint that we all carry, and this soul, maybe it's not really an individual thing. Maybe it's a memory or an imprint, if you will, a blueprint that each one of us carries with us. And that soul is a replica of God. It's the truth or the memory of home. And it isn't different to each one of us. It's the same memory. So we share that. Let's say we share the soul. Is it possible that that perfect replica or symbol has never been harmed? It's never done anything wrong because it's not really doing anything in a made-up world. It's just a reminder of who we really are. It's always with us so that one day we wake up and go, oh yeah, I totally forgot. You know? So in that way of thinking or in that way of looking at it, you could get rid of the whole concept of soul growth. It's not really what's happening. What's actually happening is we are removing all of the illusions of the ego, all the falsehoods, if you will, all the false beliefs, everything that's covering up that perfect, pure replica of God. The soul, if you will, the imprint that we share. You could even think of it as the veil, right? There's a veil, and maybe there's many veils. There's not just one veil. There's many layers to this veil, and maybe sometimes it's full of heavy armor until you get closer and closer to the soul imprint, and it starts to be translucent, right? Like the bride coming down the aisle. You can see an image of her face through that transparent veil. Maybe that's what's happening. We start to realize that this is not what we thought it was. We unlearn everything, all the conditioning of the mind and the ego mind, how hard it's worked for millennia to keep us in this multidimensional dream world. And when we start waking up from all that, all of those dimensions, all of those layers, all of the veil starts to dissolve. And what's left eventually is our memory of God, our memory of home. And it's not actually a growing process. It's a decomposition. It's a falling apart of everything we thought to be true. It's actually a completely different concept than growing into something, implying that the soul is imperfect, which is something that religion imposes, right? We're born as sinners. We're born imperfect, and now we got to figure it out to be accepted into the kingdom. If you flip it on its head and say, well, maybe we're already in the kingdom, maybe all of this has already happened, like that predetermination I talked about in the beginning, maybe it's already occurred and we're just simply thinking we have free will, but we're remembering something that's already there. And is it possible that all the darkness and all these entities that we think are attacking us and all the dragons that are coming after us and we're on the hero's journey is really just us projecting out into a world so that we stay distracted from finding that soul, that replica inside that represents God? Is it possible that we are really nothing and returning to everything, which are not one and the same thing? And is it possible that God isn't boring at all? It's actually a much better existence than what we think is here. So you can try all of these things on for yourself. Think about them. What do you think when you hear people discussing these theories? Because that's what they are. They're all theories. Whether it's religion or spirituality or science, Science is always changing. And if you're really doing science, you're always questioning the science. It's always a question. Because if absolute truth were here, we would all know it and we would not be having this conversation, right? So until we return to truth with a capital T, think about when you listen to different people out there and you hear concepts and beliefs. Are they true? Does it make sense to you? Is it groupthink? Is it the octopus's tentacles just spreading in all directions? Is it a paid influencer that's just getting likes and money? Is there an agenda behind what's being said? This isn't just spirituality and religion. This is all over the place. And then you start using your own discernment, which was the whole point of this show, to get you to realize you have a choice. You have a choice in how you see things, how you perceive something, what you believe to be true for you or isn't true for you. Or sometimes we latch a hold of certain ideas, don't we? We latch a hold of certain concepts and groupthink until eventually it's proven otherwise to us. Before I sign off here today, I want you to just think about in your own mind for a minute, where in your life, if you go back to the past, go as far back as you can and look at your life and say, wow, I remember when I used to believe this, and then eventually I didn't. And then I was drawn to this over here. I got really into that for a while, and then I didn't. And now I'm really into this theory, and I really think it might be true, but now I'm starting to wonder, maybe it isn't. And you will notice that this happens all the time in our journey here, doesn't it? It's part of our awakening. It's part of us realizing that, does anything here really hold water? Or is all of it, everything we see in the world, does all of it eventually fade into the nothingness that it is so we can return to the everything? So I'll leave that with you today. I hope you guys have a really great week. I hope you enjoyed the show. Listen to it again. Sometimes I know these deeper metaphysical principles get kind of confusing, but remember, always bringing them back to simplicity just makes more sense most of the time. So I hope you all have a fabulous week, and I will see you next time. That's it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. If it resonated, please share, follow, and drop a review with your takeaways. It really means a lot. Visit my website at livelikeeden.com to subscribe for weekly reminders and blogs, or sign up for a free 30-minute consult to explore one-on-one guidance sessions if you're really struggling in Awakening's darkness. Take my Awakening quiz to get a personal podcast playlist that meets you exactly where you're at. See you next week for another deep dive.
The UPS Store is making packing and shipping Easter gifts quicker than ever this year with UPS Air. How quick? Quicker than a walk around the park. Quicker than eating all the Easter candies. Quicker than finding a golden egg that you know is stuffed with cash. When you ship UPS Air at the UPS Store, your items arrive on time or your money back. Guaranteed at no extra cost. Exclusively at the UPS Store U.S. retail locations. Send Easter joy on time at the UPS Store. Visit the upsstore.com/air guarantee for full details. Terms and conditions apply.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.